For meeting with President-elect and longtime friend Donald Trump. Former Republican presidential candidate and former chief executive at Hewlett-Packard, Carly Fiorina, Elise Jordan back at the table as well, along with recently knighted, I didn't know this, Willie Geist. Sir, you have to call him Sir Willie now.
News to me, actually.
Exactly. So, Carly.
Impressive, by the way.
Thank you very
Knighted.
much.
So, this morning we started the show by actually commending Mitt Romney, a guy that had bashed the hell out of Donald Trump and who had been bashed by Donald Trump for sticking his neck out there for the country, despite all the disagreements. I think it says a lot about him, and also I think it says a lot about you and Donald Trump. And can you explain how that works, how political enemies can actually come together when it's in the best interest of the country?
Well, I think first, Donald Trump won this election fair and square, despite the fact that some Hillary supporters, and maybe Hillary herself, still don't want to admit that. He is our president.
Right.
I've spent the last 6 months helping the Republican Party raise money, telling people that Hillary Clinton couldn't possibly be the president of the United States, telling people that I was going to vote for Donald Trump.
You also said that about Donald Trump, though, too. I mean, and so how do you get from there to now being willing to serve the administration?
Well, first, I think all of us, myself included, have great hopes for this president-elect. We want him to be successful, and I think he will be successful. He is in a position now to reset so much, to reset the trajectory of the economy, to reset the role of government, to reset how we're perceived in the world, to reset the role we play in the world. And so I think that's why you see such accomplished people, Mitt Romney among them, Rex Tillerson among them, Betsy DeVos, Mike Flynn. I think it's why you see so many accomplished people coming forward and saying, we want to serve this president as he goes boldly and makes big changes which are necessary quickly.
The reports are that Donald Trump's considering you for Director of National Intelligence. Are those accurate?
Well, look, I had a really positive and productive meeting with Donald Trump yesterday, and we talked about a whole range of issues. We talked about China, we talked about intelligence threats and intelligence matters, we talked about geopolitical matters. That's obviously up to him, but I was really honored to have that opportunity to talk about what's going on in the world.
Did you talk
him.
about that specific position, though, Director of National Intelligence?
We had a broad-ranging conversation.
There were no specific jobs
We had
presented?
a broad-ranging and positive conversation.
So what was it like when you walked in? Just because it had been it gotten real feisty on the campaign trail. Let's understate it. How did you all sort of come back together?
Well, first of all, I have spoken with him since the election by phone. He is a very gracious and charming man. He was gracious in the phone call. He was gracious yesterday. When you walk into his office, it's a very welcoming and warm office. He has incredible paraphernalia around his office.
Yes, he does. There's lots of paraphernalia.
These incredible gifts from athletes and champions. I was particularly taken by Shaq O'Neal's shoe. I mean, that was unbelievable. He was very warm. We embraced. He gave me a kiss on the cheek, and we sat down and had a great conversation.
So how do you explain, again, the disconnect? I understand it because, you know, I've done it myself and had it done to me, but how do you explain to Americans and say, well, wait, he said all these horrible things about you. You so explain to people how that works, because for most people, they say, oh, they're such hypocrites. But explain how it works in politics. And does it work that way in business as well?
Well, first of all, an election happened. An election is over. He is the president-elect of the United States. He is going to be every American's president. That's just a fact. And I think most Americans accept that. Maybe Hillary and her team don't quite accept it yet, but I think most Americans accept that. And so if you love your country, you want our president to succeed. And so you put aside whatever it is. I have no ill will towards Donald Trump. It's why I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that he won as opposed to Hillary Clinton won, because I know his policies will be better for this nation.
Elise.
But does it make you worried at all after the experience of Mitt Romney putting himself out there, a highly competent, qualified American who wants to serve his country, and then Trump's own advisors turned against him during the process and were publicly trashing him? Does that give you pause as someone who is putting yourself out there to serve in his administration?
It doesn't give me pause. I mean, I can't comment on all of the back and forth. What I know is that having spent a fair amount of time with Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon and Reince Priebus and Jared, these are honorable people, and I think they're trying to do their very best to advise this president to pick the very best people that share his objectives, that share his worldview. Look, these are important positions, and you better get folks who are going to do the job well. I think, you know, of all the things that have been said about Rex Tillerson this morning, and obviously he's very accomplished, one of the things that I'd like to point out is ExxonMobil has done some superb economic development work around the world.
Now, do you know
that
Rex?
I've met him briefly, but you know, 80% of the economic development money in the world today is private sector money. And ExxonMobil in particular has done some outstanding economic development
Are you
work.
concerned about his ties with Russia?
Well, that's
With
what confirmation hearings are for, and I'm quite sure that senators will do their job and examine all those ties. But what I know is he's led an extremely successful company. That company has been generous and impactful on the ground all over the world. And so I think in addition to everything else he brings to the table, he brings an understanding of how the private sector and the public sector can work together to advance economic development goals in a way that is sustainable over the long term, because Exxon has played a very important role in that effort.
All right. Carly Fiorina.
Carly, good to see you.
Nice to see
Good
you
to see you
guys.
again. Thank you
Thanks.
for coming
All right,
in.
thanks.